Todd Clippinger, and welcome to the American Craftsman Workshop. Of all the questions that I get, the most frequent ones revolve around how do I get my inspiration, my ideas, and how do I design? Well, today I'm going to share with you some of the tips and some of the habits that I have that help promote a creative lifestyle. The first thing that I suggest that you do, and it's something that I do myself, is to get out and just explore. And that can be as simple as going for a walk. Go for a walk out or a bike ride in the neighborhoods that you're used to seeing every day, but you just whiz by in your car as you go from work to home or to the grocery store. What you're going to find is a lot of times you're going to discover there's a lot of details and neat things within the architecture of the homes and the buildings that we just take for granted every day. So rediscover the buildings in your area and take note of a lot of the details in the architecture, because a lot of those can be applied to furniture. Furniture is simply small architecture. Another way that you can really expose yourself to a lot more is to go to a parade of homes or a heritage home tour. The parade of homes typically are new homes, and the heritage home tours, of course, are older homes that have been rehabbed. Now, Rita and I tend to like and favor the heritage home tours. We find that actually with the old homes there's a lot more unique creative ideas expressed in the old homes as they're redone. But whether you do a parade of homes or a heritage home tour, something that's really important that you're going to be exercising is understanding space and dimensions. If you're in these different environments, if you do the tours and you're going to be in all these different environments, you're going to be allowed to see pieces of furniture, large and small, within a given space. And in understanding design and how something feels, it's really important to start getting a sense of volume. Now, you're not going to get that from looking in books and magazines and on the internet at pictures. So it's important that you get out in person and put yourself in situations where you're seeing whether it's architecture in a commercial residential building or furniture laid out in a room. All these things are going to help you understand volume. Now, as you explore new designs and ideas, I certainly don't want to discount the importance of researching and looking through books, magazines, and the internet. This is certainly a very inexpensive way to do research and expose yourself to a lot of ideas without ever leaving home or just going to the local library or bookstore to be able to do so. Another way to expose yourself to a lot of creativity and designs and art is to go to the art galleries and museums. My wife and I love going to the gallery hops, or maybe it's called the art walk in your area. But what I highly suggest is that you check out these gallery hops and check out the galleries, because when you do that, a lot of times you're going to get to meet the actual artists that have pieces on display. And what you're going to find is these artists often are very approachable, and it's wonderful to strike up a conversation with them. There's a certain conversation that you're going to have with an artist that you're just not going to have with somebody that's not quite as creative and doesn't express themselves in a creative manner. Now, this leads to my next great point, which is make connections with other artists. Now, I know that the first natural tendency is to gravitate towards like-minded individuals and people that work in the same medium as you do. For me, it's wood. I'm a furniture maker. So woodworkers, furniture makers, these are the people that I gravitate to first. But over time, I've made connections with a lot of other artists in other mediums. And one of my favorite is actually metal artists and craftsmen, because metal and wood goes together like peanut butter and jelly. So I've made some really good friends with metal artisans, and actually I've got to collaborate with them. And I'm going to tell you something, no pun intended, but the sparks fly when we get together and start doing a lot of design and troubleshooting designs and mechanics of a design to put something together. So there's a lot of creativity and a lot of influence that's going to go on between the disciplines the other disciplines that maybe you aren't strong in. So I highly encourage you to connect with other artists. And you know, me being a furniture maker, I also have found that even painters and photographers greatly influence my vision for what furniture can be. A lot of their work, you know, what you find actually is it's all related, because everybody that's an artist is expressing themselves. And they're utilizing the same basic tools, only in their own medium. We're all exercising balance, proportions, form, color, texture, contrast. All of these things we're drawing on. And actually, what you find is from each personality, each individual is expressing themselves through that medium. So I think you're going to be inspired and a lot of ideas sparked in ways that you never thought of if you hook up with artists from other mediums. And I highly appreciate all the relationships that I've developed with these other artists. Okay, so far we've talked about exposing yourself or putting yourself in places and situations that's going to expose you to more designs and creativity, and also making connections with other artists. So at this point, you know, ideas are starting to flow and you're seeing things, so what are you going to do? Well, you need to start recording that, and the first thing that I suggest is take pictures. You know, the great thing with smartphones, and even if you don't have a smartphone, most phones today, if you carry one, like most of us do now, they have the ability to take pictures. I also carry a point and shoot camera with me in my work van, and sometimes I'll pull over and go capture pictures of something that I just happen to see, and I just need to capture that. And guess what, guys? Don't get hung up in trying to do great architectural photography or great photography. Just get a snapshot for reference, and if you can, get a couple different angles, because what you see from the front and what you see from the sides are going to be two different things and may strike you differently as you use them for reference photos. Now let's talk about drawing. You know, sketching, you're going to have a sketchbook. And when you get an idea, you have something, what I recommend is first just throw down a real rough sketch. You know, that idea, it's like waking up from sleep and you had a dream and you remember it and then it just fades off real fast. So you want to hold on to that as long as you can, as fast as you can, and the best thing you can do is throw out a rough sketch. Don't get hung up on a real clean, fine drawing, because at that point you're going to get hung up in trying to make the perfect drawing and you're going to lose it. So throw down the rough sketch first, and something that's going to happen is you're very likely to get spin-offs of that idea, because one idea begets another. So jot down notes if you have any variations on that design, or do an offshoot sketch and have them all together there. Now what's kind of neat is as you have those sketches in these photos, there's a certain momentum of thought process that you have at that time, and if you get it down, what you'll find is when you go back later in time, if it's 6 months, a year, or 2 years later, when you see those, you're going to have a different thought process that's going to spin off of that. So it's very important that you record the things that you see that you find interesting, and whether it's with photography or an idea that pops in your head and you need to get that down on paper with a quick rough sketch. Very important. Okay, so here's a question for you. How does a Japanese torii gate turn into a stairwell barrier? Well, this brings us to point number 4, and that's how to see with the creative eye. And that's probably the most difficult thing. Well, here's what it comes down to, and I think is probably the most important point to take away. It's not what you're looking at, it's how you're looking at it. So when I see something like a Japanese torii gate, I look at the torii gate, I see the details, and then I break it down to basic geometric form. Now I can just take that form, that basic geometric form, and capture the essence of that Japanese torii gate and turn it into something else, which is, in this case, a stairwell barrier. So keep in mind, those buildings that you're driving by every day, it's not what you're looking at, it's how you're looking at them. That commercial building you're driving by, it has rows and rows and rows of windows on each side. What you need to understand is there's a geometric pattern there, a repeating pattern, and that pattern can become a texture. Now here's something important to keep in mind. When you look at something straight on, and we're still using a building for example, when you look straight on a building with a bank with rows and rows of windows, there's one pattern there. But as you move to the side and to a more extreme view, that repeating pattern changes and you can pick up a different impression off of it. Now here's something else, impressions. Trust your first impression. A lot of times when you see something, you'll get a little flash, just that fast, and in half a second, you get an impression. And that, often is the greatest idea. And also, when you're designing something, if you're struggling with the design, put it down on paper, or maybe you're making a model in the shop, leave it. You just need to walk away with from that design and your struggles with it. You need to come back the next day, and when you walk into the shop, you'll get that, just that fast, that impression. Whatever's wrong with that design is going to hit you, and trust that impression. I want you to trust that instinct. Also, when you're breaking down your designs and working with proportions, don't get hung up on mathematical formulas, real complicated. You know, I'm aware of the golden proportions, and you know what? Really, all I do is break everything down into simple numbers. I go in thirds and I go in quarters. This part is 2/3 and this part's in 1/3. And actually, if you look at most architecture and furniture, a lot of things are just simply broken down, and it will break down into that. And for me personally, I just can't get carried away with formulas. They get too complicated and they break my thought process, my creative thought process. So I keep it simple. And that's why, going back to the sketches, you want to keep the sketches simple and fast. You want to get them out real quick. And then if you take a look at those sketches, you can start refining them too, but get them down fast. Don't break the creative flow process. Well, I hope these things help you guys. They're things that I apply to my life. They're actually the way that I think and the way that I keep, I live basically a creative lifestyle. It's like my creativity is not separate from what I do work-wise. It's actually just an everyday part of who I am. And they're habits and things that help me live the creative life and be inspired from the things that I see every day. So I hope that these things help you, and I hope that you get out there and start creating. And until next time, be safe in your own shop.